Shifting sands, the new geopolitical landscape. The world is undergoing a profound economic and geopolitical transformation. Global power dynamics are shifting, driven by the rise of new economic giants and the resurgence of geopolitical competition. This shift is being accelerated by technological advances, climate change, and the COVID-19 pandemic. Emerging economies, particularly China, are playing an increasingly assertive role. This shift has led to increased trade tensions, geopolitical maneuvering, and military buildups. This new era of geopolitical competition is playing out on multiple fronts, from the South China Sea to Eastern Europe. It is a competition for resources, markets, and technological dominance. The outcome of this competition will shape the world for decades to come. The stakes are high and the consequences of failure are significant. A world characterized by escalating geopolitical competition and economic fragmentation would be a more dangerous and uncertain place. The challenge for policymakers is to navigate this new landscape in a way that preserves peace, promotes prosperity, and advances the common good. European crossroads, Germany's economic vulnerability. Germany, the economic powerhouse of Europe, finds itself at a crossroads. Its export-oriented economy, heavily reliant on global trade and energy imports, is facing unprecedented challenges. The war in Ukraine has exposed the vulnerabilities of Germany's dependence on Russian gas. Germany's economic model, once a source of strength, is now seen by some as a liability. The energy crisis triggered by the war in Ukraine has been particularly acute in Germany. The disruption of gas supplies from Russia has sent energy prices soaring, threatening German industry and households. Germany is now grappling with the need to rapidly reduce its dependence on Russian energy while ensuring its energy security. This involves accelerating the transition to renewable energy sources, diversifying its energy imports, and reducing energy consumption. The energy gambit, Russia's high-stakes strategy. Russia, under the leadership of Vladimir Putin, is pursuing a high-stakes geopolitical strategy that seeks to reassert its influence on the world stage. Central to this strategy is leveraging Russia's vast energy resources, particularly natural gas, as a tool of economic and political leverage. The Kremlin recognizes that Europe's dependence on Russian energy gives it considerable sway. This strategy was evident in the lead-up to the Ukraine war, with Russia manipulating gas supplies to Europe. While the invasion of Ukraine has backfired in many ways, it has also exposed Europe's energy vulnerabilities. Europe is actively seeking to reduce its reliance on Russian energy, accelerating investments in renewables, and diversifying its energy sources. This shift away from Russian energy could ultimately undermine Russia's economic and geopolitical standing. As the global energy landscape evolves, Russia's reliance on fossil fuels as a source of geopolitical leverage may prove to be a strategic liability. Economic fault lines, cracks in the global system. The war in Ukraine and the ensuing geopolitical standoff between Russia and the West have exposed deep fault lines in the global economic system. The conflict has highlighted the interconnectedness of the global economy, but also its fragility. The sanctions imposed on Russia by the West have had ripple effects throughout the global economy, disrupting supply chains, fueling inflation, and exacerbating food insecurity. The war has led to a surge in energy and commodity prices, fueling inflation worldwide. The conflict has also disrupted global supply chains, which were already strained by the COVID-19 pandemic. Beyond pipelines and politics, rethinking energy security. The current energy crisis has forced a fundamental rethink of energy security both in Europe and globally. The traditional approach to energy security based on securing access to affordable and reliable supplies of fossil fuels is no longer sufficient. Europe, heavily reliant on Russian gas, is now scrambling to reduce its dependence and diversify its energy sources. This involves accelerating the transition to renewable energy, investing in energy efficiency measures, and securing alternative sources of fossil fuels. Achieving energy independence will require a fundamental shift in energy policy and infrastructure. By investing in renewable energy and energy efficiency, countries can reduce their reliance on fossil fuels, enhance their energy security, and mitigate the impacts of climate change. A new Iron Curtain, economic decoupling and its discontents. The war in Ukraine and the escalating rivalry between the West and Russia have raised concerns about a new Iron Curtain descending upon Europe. The sanctions imposed on Russia, combined with Moscow's retaliatory measures, have led to a significant reduction in economic ties between Russia and the West. The West has sought to isolate Russia economically, cutting it off from the global financial system. Russia, in turn, has responded with counter-sanctions restricting exports of essential commodities. This economic decoupling has significant implications for both sides, leading to higher costs and supply chain disruptions. The long-term consequences of this economic decoupling are uncertain, potentially leading to a more fragmented and polarized world. The price of sanctions, a double-edged sword. The sanctions imposed on Russia by the West are a double-edged sword. While they are intended to punish Moscow for its actions in Ukraine, they also carry significant economic and geopolitical costs. The sanctions have undoubtedly inflicted pain on the Russian economy, but they have also had ripple effects throughout the global economy. The sanctions have disrupted global supply chains, leading to higher energy and food prices. This has disproportionately impacted developing countries that are highly dependent on Russian and Ukrainian imports. Moreover, the sanctions have accelerated the trend towards deglobalization. This shift away from globalization could have far-reaching consequences for the global economy, potentially leading to a more fragmented and less prosperous world. Innovation imperative, the race for technological sovereignty. The current geopolitical climate has intensified the race for technological sovereignty. Countries are increasingly prioritizing the development and control of critical technologies, such as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, biotechnology, and semiconductors. The United States and China are the leading contenders in this technological arms race. The European Union has launched several initiatives aimed at promoting technological innovation and reducing its dependence on foreign technology. This race for technological sovereignty has both positive and negative implications. The challenge for policymakers is to strike a balance between promoting technological innovation and managing the risks associated with technological competition. The Global South, caught in the crossfire. The war in Ukraine and the ensuing geopolitical rivalry between the West and Russia have had a profound impact on the Global South. These countries are facing a multitude of challenges, including rising food and energy prices, supply chain disruptions, and a decline in foreign investment. Many of these countries are highly dependent on imports of food, fuel, and fertilizer from Russia and Ukraine. The surge in commodity prices has fueled inflation in many developing countries, eroding purchasing power and pushing millions of people into poverty. The disruption of global supply chains has also had a severe impact, leading to shortages of essential goods. Additionally, the war has diverted attention and resources away from other pressing global challenges. The international community must provide support to developing countries to help them cope with the economic and social consequences of the war in Ukraine. This includes providing financial assistance, debt relief, and humanitarian aid. A fractured world towards a new economic order. The war in Ukraine and the escalating rivalry between the West and Russia have accelerated the fragmentation of the global economic order. The post-Cold War era of globalization is giving way to a more fragmented and uncertain world. The sanctions imposed on Russia have disrupted global supply chains and reduced trade and investment flows. This fragmentation is evident in the emergence of competing economic blocs and the growing emphasis on economic nationalism. The rise of China as a global economic powerhouse is another factor contributing to the fragmentation of the global economic order. The COVID-19 pandemic has also accelerated the trend towards fragmentation, exposing the vulnerabilities of global supply chains. Charting a course navigating uncertainty and interdependence. The global economy is at a crossroads, facing a confluence of challenges that threaten to unravel the progress made in recent decades. The war in Ukraine, the escalating rivalry between the West and Russia, the rise of China, and the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic have created a perfect storm of uncertainty and instability. Navigating this complex and rapidly evolving landscape requires a delicate balancing act. Countries are reevaluating their supply chains, seeking to reduce their reliance on potentially hostile or unstable partners. This trend towards reshoring and regionalization is understandable given the current geopolitical climate, but it also carries risks. Excessive protectionism could stifle innovation, raise prices for consumers, and ultimately harm global growth. The rise of China presents both opportunities and challenges for the global economy. China's economic dynamism has lifted millions out of poverty and created vast new markets for goods and services. However, China's growing economic and military might also pose as challenges to the existing global order. The COVID-19 pandemic has underscored the interconnectedness of the global economy and the importance of international cooperation. Charting a course through these turbulent waters requires a commitment to multilateralism, dialogue, and a shared vision for a more peaceful and prosperous future.